Hey guys, Brian here with Better Chess Training, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about changing your openings and factors you need to consider. Recently, going through this process myself, had a lot of reflections upon it, so I thought I'd share some of them with you. So check it out. Hey guys, in today's video, I kind of want to discuss a few factors that you want to consider when you're changing openings. This is a process that I'm actually going through right now. Just wanting to add a little something to my repertoire and just a few things that I have found helpful for myself that I think you might find helpful too. Okay, and the first thing here, and I have a little outline, but I will try to make this a little conversational and kind of use examples from my own decisions to kind of show what I'm talking about. But the first one is considering why are you making the change? And as many of you know, with the white pieces, I have played the Kali pass, and here a lot of ways to get to it, but I'll just kind of put it up here. But the general idea here is to set up with the knight on f3 and the bishop on d3 and pawns on d4 and e3, eventually playing for that e4 break. And played this for a little while. I do enjoy it, but I just wanted a little change. Now, one of the considerations or questions I had for my or thoughts I had was, well, Kali's a nice opening, but as I get stronger, I'm gonna want something a little more robust. And I was talking to a few friends of mine as well as my coach, and kind of said, well, the Kali can really be played up to very high levels. I mean, Magnus Carlsen has played the Kali as well. So the idea, or I guess my point behind that is that maybe if that's the only reason why you feel like you have to make a change, then you might want to consider whether or not that's really valid. If you really enjoy playing the opening, you might want to stick with it, and maybe you just need to learn more about it and really become more of an expert. And again, I don't consider myself an expert in this opening, but I'm definitely a lot more proficient than I was a couple years ago. And so, in this case, in my case, I really just wanted to just try something different and have a change of pace. I just had my 45th birthday, so I was joking with my friends that I'm having a midlife chess crisis. But I just wanted to try other things, and I think that's part of the growth and development process. But I want I guess what one of my key points behind this is that I want you to avoid just jumping around because you think that your opening is not strong enough. Now, if you play something like 1a4 or 1c3, then maybe you do need to upgrade your openings at some point. But I think for most non-professional chess players, most of the openings you'll be able to find strong players, grandmasters who play that opening and do quite well with it. So I think that you just want to be aware of why you're making that change. Okay, the second consideration is one of temperament and style. And, it makes a lot of sense that you want to play openings that fit with your style. But one thing that I would caution you for is that, is that you want to make sure you're not mistaking style for your lack of weaknesses in a certain area. Let me give you an example. As we all know, Garry Kasparov was the world champion when I started playing chess seriously. So I fashioned myself as a attacking player. So I would try to attack all the time, and then I want to play openings where I can attack. And I'm not saying that I do enjoy attacking, but when I was much lower rated, my I couldn't attack like Kasparov, so I had to learn other aspects of the game like positional play. And when you look at these players like Kasparov and Tal, for example, they are tactical players, attacking players, but they are also very good at positional chess and end games and all the other aspects of the game. All the world champions are. Karpov, Petrosian, Smyslov, Botvinnik, you think of them as what? Positional players, strategic players. But they're also very good at tactics and attacking. It's more of a case that, getting stronger. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is strong players are strong. and they're good at all areas of the game, and their personalities maybe tend more towards that. Tal and Botvinnik, if you look at their games, they both were positionally very good. They're both battling each other tactically, and the main thing is, especially I was reading Howell's account of the match, and he is more aggressive and he has more aggressive thoughts on his mind. But both of them, you have to be proficient in all areas. So choosing an opening because you think that you have a certain style, especially if you have certain weaknesses, is something that you have to be careful about. And just to give you an example, if you're poor in the end game, that doesn't mean necessarily that, well, I need to play, tactically rich openings that avoid the end game. Maybe you just need to get better at the end game, or I'm a positional player because I'm terrible at tactics. Well, if you're terrible at tactics, you're just not going to be very good at chess in general. You need to get better at tactics, and maybe you are a positional player. So I'm not trying to say that that's not the case, but you need to strengthen those weaknesses before before your full potential, I guess, can come out. I guess I would say eventually you're going to develop preferences, okay? Preferences based on maybe a predilection towards wanting to be more aggressive or patience to be able to play these slow maneuvering games. But I think to choose an opening just based on that when you have many areas of your game that you need to strengthen is very dangerous. But I do agree that eventually you will find positions that you enjoy playing more than others. And that could be an indication of a certain style or temperament. And I think you should go with that. Okay? The next aspect I want to discuss is how much time you have to study an opening. And this specifically refers to choosing openings that have a lot of theoretical knowledge that's necessary to play it, as opposed to maybe other openings which are maybe just as sound that don't require as much theoretical knowledge. And I'll show you an example from my own current thought process. And one of them is, I am playing around with, and I would say I'm switching over to E4. Now, again, I do enjoy playing the Kali, so I do play it a lot in Blitz, but I just like a lot of the openings that start with 1E4, and a lot of my favorite players play 1E4, and I played it in the past, and I really enjoyed it, so I'm exploring some new lines with 1 to E4. But here's my point. With that, you can use different approaches, and against some of Black's defenses, for example, E5, knight to F3, knight to C6. You can choose openings like the Italian, which are theoretical. Don't get me wrong, are theoretical, but maybe a little easier manage than say the Roy Lopez. And uh, partly because Roy Lopez has so many different responses that are valid or that are sound that you need to know strategies and some theory behind them. Whereas with Bishop to C4, there's ways to shortcut some of it, and there's less viable responses that don't get Black into a lot of trouble. And again, maybe I'm overgeneralizing it, but the idea being that you can choose lines that require a lot more study in order to be proficient, or choose lines that maybe are less theoretical. And again, that's why one reason why I played the Kali initially is because I wanted to have a system that I can have a decent middle game with, that didn't require me to know too many tactical lines that I could get, and not too many traps that I can get a bad position with because I don't know the theory. So part of this is, so I kind of took, just to show you what I did, I'm kind of taking a hybrid decision on this. So after playing 1 to E4, I am starting to take up the Roy Lopez here with Bishop to B5, which involves studying a lot of the responses, such as A6, which can lead into a lot of the closed positions or transpose into other things. Um, we have D6, for example. We have knight to F6, and and from there it branches out further. I'm not going to get too far into it right now, but the idea is it will require more studying. So with the other aspects of the other responses against um, against E4, I'm choosing to pick some of maybe simpler openings. For example, with the French, and again, I play the French too, so I kind of have some familiarity with this. Instead of picking knight to c3 or knight to d2, which could be involve quite a bit of study, I'm choosing the exchange, which has uh, slightly less um, study involved because there's a lot of lines that will give white a decent game, and whereas with uh, some of those other openings, if you go wrong, you can find yourself giving black easy equality fairly quickly. In any case, and again, some people feel that the exchange variation with white are is sort of a non-threatening opening. But if you think about it, and Christoph Zielecki in his book Keep It Simple 1E4 talks about this, you think about the typical French player, and myself being one of them, what do we like to do? We like to play, and I'll show you here. We like to get this on e5, and then later we're going to want to let white have a space advantage, and then later we're going to attack it with c5 and f6. So the idea behind choosing the exchange variation is that even if at the highest levels it does not offer a ton of, I guess you could say, winning chances, it's not. It's also going to take the black player out of their element. And as my coach recently reminded me, if you look at some of Kasparov's games and Magnus Carlsen, they've played a lot of games with the exchange French, and they pose a lot of problems for their opponent. So the opening itself is not necessarily tame. But getting back to my original point, it's kind of a hybrid way of delving into some more theoretical lines while in other variations choosing a simpler line that allows you to shortcut some of that study time. But really consider that if you're a working person like myself with three kids, I realize it's going to take a little longer over time to learn this, but I'm willing to put that time in. So that's what you have to ask yourself. Okay, the next thing you want to consider is what type of resources do you have to study any new opening that you want to have. I think a lot of times we're inspired by we're looking at new openings because of a great book that comes out, or maybe you're working with a coach that plays an opening, or maybe one of your favorite players plays that opening. I know the London jumped up. Uh, London, show you here. Take this line off here. The London, which could be reached after something like d4, d5, knight to f3, 6, and bishop to f4, uh, popped up in popularity quite a bit after Magnus Carlsen played it. And so all of a sudden everybody's playing the London. I guess you could say the same thing with the Kali because I started playing the Kali shortly after Magnus Carlsen played it as well. But you want to look at what are the resources you have to study this opening. And again, it could be something as simple as I'm going to study Magnus Carlsen's games with the London and then base my repertoire off of that. Or maybe you find another player, maybe a lesser known grandmaster, rated between 2,500 and 2,600, who has 30 games online in a database with a certain opening you like. And he has a pretty good plus score, so you want to check those out. I just want to show you this. Many years ago, uh, Jakob Agard wrote this book, The Easy Guide to the Pen of Botvinnik Attack. And it got a lot of good reviews, and it really, the format of it is one of the best for chess books, opening chess books, in my opinion, with a great mix of theory and practice. It was, anyways, more on that later. But I started playing this many years ago with E4, and in fact, I picked it up again. Now I have, looking using the databases to update some of the theory, but a lot of the ideas he talks about. He talks about a lot of the strategic ideas, the endgame themes that are still valid, even though some of the specific move orders and theory have changed over the years. So you want to consider that if you don't have, for example, if you want to learn a specific opening, but you can't find a good book, and you're not skilled enough, we'll put it this way, if you're not skilled enough to look it up and start researching it yourself, then you might want to look around for other openings. And this is where coaches come in too. Maybe you have a coach who's an expert in a line. I mean, this is what all the top players do. Is their team are typically experts in the lines that they want to use for an opening match. So, anyways, the point is you want to consider what resources you have in front of you when deciding what lines you want to play as well. Okay, and just a couple final thoughts when it comes to changing openings. Uh, generally, I do recommend you stick with once you've made a decision to play an opening. You're going to have some growing pains because especially if it's a totally different opening. One of the options I considered, for example, was maybe switching back to sort of a mainline D4 or C4 type system instead of the Kali, which I played before, but maybe studying different lines. And easing into that might be a little bit different than, say, switching back to E4, which I haven't played in about 15 years, maybe 10 years, um, and studying different lines in it. So you want to consider, whether you really need to make a big wholesale change or maybe just tweak different aspects of your repertoire just to expand your growth. The other thought I had too is that changing openings itself has value outside of just the opening. So even if you choose an opening and after a year of playing it, you decide you really don't want to play it anymore, you would have learned a lot about pawn structures and the typical tactics. And then if you switch to like a similar line or lines that have similar themes, you're going to have that knowledge too. So don't feel that you've wasted any time if you decide that you want to change an opening. Every opening variation has lessons to be learned about overall about chess strategy, chess endgames, different aspects of chess. And uh, finally, just to kind of wrap this up, I think that exploring these different openings, especially early on in your chess career as you're learning chess, but even as you've matured and you've kind of uh, played for a while as you're more experienced, it's good to explore things because I think a lot about chess, and maybe this is my own personal philosophy on it, is about self-discovery, deciding what you like, deciding what types of positions you enjoy, deciding about, are you patient enough to play something like the Catalan that will, give you a nice overall long-term advantage, or do you like, having a hyper-focused repertoire, very theoretical, where you're going to be able to try to get some opening tactics on someone, learning those aspects about yourself, and then designing your training to supplement them is, I think, both enjoyable and really a worthwhile use of your time when it comes to developing yourself as a chess player and I guess as a person. So, um, in any case, I think uh, those are some of my thoughts. Let me know in the comments uh, what you think as well in terms of changing openings, or maybe share an experience about an opening change you made, whether it be positive or negative, and what lessons you learned from it. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to give a quick thanks to all of my patrons. I really appreciate your support. It is um, very inspiring for me when creating these videos, and I will try to do my best to make the best videos possible and make your experience as patrons as enjoyable as possible. I want to welcome two new patrons who joined recently. Thank you, and let me know whatever I can do to help you. And finally, if you want to think about supporting the channel, you can check out the link down below. Patrons get to see PGN files of all of the analysis that I've done on any of the games that I show on this channel, as well as a little more priority when it comes to suggesting video ideas, thoughts there. So check that out if you want. Obviously, it is optional, but the support is appreciated. Okay, over here, got a couple more videos about openings, so check those out as well, and have a great day.